Hi, today I'd like to talk about how to be lasting is to be real. What is real is lasting. And if we can face the falsehood, we no longer have a false face. If we're not being real inside, we look at the world with a false face. But if we're facing the falseness as the real, then it's like you can see it, you're not it. But like attracts like, so we've got to see where and why did I make space for this falsehood. So falsehood is like anti-life, and I've been a little bit on a theme a few times already about talking about the questions we get asked when we die and we go to heaven, or the place where we're asked about our lifetime. We have to give an accountability record of these questions. So even if we don't remember, it's all recorded. I like to think the trees are my witness, the walls of my house are my witness, for real. So I'm going to give, just to open it up a little bit from Torah, just to say, these are some examples of real and false. So first of all, there was a Binyamin war with the tribe of Binyamin in the Torah. I had this conversation with a friend of mine. And there was a Levite, his concubine, and the town wanted to rape him as a homosexual drive for power over a man. And unfortunately, he gave the woman, he threw her out the house and locked the door, and then they raped her. She was she was dying when he found her. All night they did this, and he was in Binyamin territory, and pieces of her were sent to all the tribes once he discovered her that way. But and Levites don't have a portion, so he was traveling. Levites didn't have a portion of the land. He was traveling through the Benjamin territory, and nobody was allowed to marry their sons. Eventually, they came back together, but for a long time, and I think they killed almost the majority of them. There was only some hundreds of males left, as far as I can remember, and that might not be exactly right, but something like that. There was a war. Another thing is, from all the tribes left, they say that there's just Judah and Benjamin, and then some sprinklings of the others. And obviously the Levites didn't have their own, the Levites, the priests are still here, but they're from lineages. Then there's the story of Dinah. She was not one of the tribes, but she was their sister, and she fell in love with an uncircumcised man, and she was seduced and kidnapped, and he humiliated her. Eventually her husbands got the whole city to perform a circumcision. Her brothers got the whole city to perform a circumcision, and they killed them because of what they had done to their sister. And finally, and these are all obviously really intense examples of what's real and what's false. But then finally, Yoshua, Moses' right-hand man, who eventually, I'm not going to say replaced Moses, but continued to lead the Jews after Moses passed into Israel. He married Rechav. Rechav is the one who, during the spies that were sent to see the land, they said we're like grasshoppers, the fruit is too big, the people are too big, the land swallows the inhabitants, I don't know if it's good. They said things that sounded really bad, and only two of them didn't. And the two of the tribe's leaders, the princes, didn't say anything. One of them was Pinchas, one of them was Kalev. And unfortunately, the Jews had to travel for 40 years after that, because they spoke gossip about their gift, their promised land, their betrothed partner. And so, speaking in that way, trying to incite people to hate the Creator's plan for them. And each of them passed in a horrific way of being eaten alive by a worm that would enter their belly button while they would dig a grave for themselves every single year on that day. And that whole generation eventually died, and it was the next generation that went in with Yehoshua, but Yehoshua was there for a long time. And he was, when there was the sin of the golden calf, he was the one who waited at the bottom of the mountain. He did not go to join the people with that. He didn't even really know much of what was going on, because he waited for Moses for the 40 days till Moses came back down the mountain with the 2 tablets. And then when Moses saw the sin of the golden calf, he knew. He was so upset, and he broke the tablets. But it was Yoshua that waited at the bottom of the mountain. So anyway, I'm going to now ask these questions and answer as a practice, kind of to close out this theme as I move forward with some other themes in the future. So the reason to do this is because we have to face it and then we can release it. Obviously, part of releasing it is also correcting it. So in speaking about my history of the Jewish people, I'm speaking about falling in love with people where it's not real love, people, trying to have power over others, people punishing each other. Like I spoke about Yehoshua, I forgot to say, with Rachav, this woman, she hid the spies when they came, and she merited to be saved with her family after, when the whole entire city and everywhere around all those territories was killed. And in fact, Yehoshua, who I just mentioned, very pious man, married her, but they didn't have kids. So kind of seeing like all these different angles about connection and reality and falsehood, and how it's not always what you think. Like what you think might be good, what you think might not be good. Were you involved in being fruitful and multiplying? So I tried to empower people and comfort them, which is both the masculine and the feminine forms of nurture, without needing credit. For me, that's been like being a parent to people who I get no honor, no gratitude even. I didn't feel it was possible for me to have casual sex for any reason other than have kids, or investing and maintaining in a bond that would eventually yield that. I didn't feel I could give equality, give sexuality, or get sexuality in that way, where it wouldn't be for the sake of the future. So that wasn't always the case. I, at times, used sex in false ways. And then I let go of my fears for the sake of making connections that could propagate a life, a family, a love in the world, by changing the way I see things so that I could become wiser in order to accomplish things. Things like getting my house in order, releasing stuck energy, becoming more adaptive and patient, and all these are necessary for child rearing. And I would say, kind of letting go of my fear. So, fear of unpredictability. In letting go of it, I'm often finding I can play and I can learn. In letting go of my fear of losing control, I can actually enjoy being supported, and I can enjoy feeling calibrated. And then letting go of my fear of impermanence, there's novelty, there's surprise. Were you in awe of heaven is the next question. I tried transforming my fear of being single or homeless or injured or anything else my mind could come up with into focus or negativity, pessimism, and to focus on the sustainer, the governor, so I could see the amazing miracles of my life being done for me and all of creation, how unbelievably perfect the wider view is, instead of getting stuck in pernicious influences, stubbornness, detail-oriented desires. I gave sacrifices, what prevented me from being a dwelling place, what seemed more attractive to serve because of a false sense of security or control or in its predictability, usually because it needed me as a means to an end, so I felt reassured. Anyway, what prevented me from being a dwelling place had to go many, many times, even if I felt very attached. And finally, I knew that the heavenly that lives in me is the most powerful of all of me, that I am more than I can handle, that it takes something beyond to protect me from the efforts of my own, from the effects of my own compounded intentions that are often not fully pure in words too. And the last question was, did you fix times to study Torah, prioritize the law and the truth? And I said Sundays and Wednesdays I took a class from a rabbi. And on Thursdays I used to be part of this group. On Tuesdays I do a class. There's daily weekdays, except there's a summer break, to be with another class. Every week I read the Parsha, which is the portion of the week, and I pray from a special sitter from Romamu, which is a spiritual community in Manhattan. And also I read from a book on the Parsha every Friday night. All these also from a student of Moshe Feinstein, who's a rabbi. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, a student of his, wrote a book on the Parsha, which is the portion of the Torah for each week. I try to talk about Torah and the true wisdom of living in the life source via the code in as many as opportunities as I can. I remember with my friend Michael, in many text messages with people. I record myself reading things for people. Even when I smoke weed, I try to use it. If I do, I don't know if I smoked in the last week or probably like last week sometime I'm not an avid smoker, but sometimes I do, and in that way I feel like I could elevate even the weed smoke, which if I do smoke, it's because I'm in physical pain, but I guess I should say thank God I've been without the pain. I studied every day also for a period, and I study every day for a period every morning and also every night. I also increased when I could, and I took Torah classes, even that are not regular ones, and mostly I chose Torah Zoom classes over other offers that I had available. And I have a special Torah book that I read every Shabbos, every Saturday, and it's called Scientific Thinking in Messianic Times. And so I wish you a beautiful day. Thanks for spending time with me, and remember, being real is what lasts, and facing the falsehood is one of the ways to release it.